Yeah, so we'll start in 1 minute.
Media?
Okay. We will be starting in about a minute or so as we welcome another member of the media. Just give him a little few moments to set up and then we will start. You're just in time, don't worry. We have started the live stream, so while people are tuning in there, we will begin in a minute or so. Yeah? So just tell us when you are ready, because our live stream is up.
I'm ready.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. My name is Khadija Amin. I am the Member of Parliament for St. Augustine constituency, a member of the opposition, and the shadow for local government. Local government is the arm of government that is closest to people. The UNC has always been very people-centered in our policies and our programs and in our governance. The PNM has made many promises to local government, but we do not often see meaningful changes from the PNM when it comes to local government. In fact, it seems as though the PNM only remembers local government when a local government election is due. We had this happening in Siparia region. In January of 2019, the UNC-led council passed a resolution to ask the government to make Siparia Regional Corporation into a borough. That is, to upgrade Siparia to borough status. In November of 2019, towards the end of that same year, there was a local government election when the campaign, Prime Minister Keith Rowley himself found his way to Siparia region to join the campaign. And on that campaign trail, he promised to make Siparia Regional Corporation a borough. We were looking forward to the upgrade and the development of Siparia to reach borough status. We had no word from the government since, until in November of 2020, more than a year later, at the opening of the Diego Martin Community Center, Prime Minister Keith Rowley announced to the media that 2 new boroughs will be approved by Cabinet, Siparia region and Diego Martin region. In September of 2021, which is last month, another year after, the Minister of Local Government very hurriedly called the members of the Siparia Council to meet with them to discuss changing Siparia from a municipal corporation to a borough. The UNC believes that changing regional corporations to boroughs must not be cosmetic. It must not simply be a name change. It must not simply be calling the chairman his worship. It has to do with development objectives that will tie into the national agenda and developing the region, stimulating local economic development, creating jobs, and developing the people of the region. A borough must have developed transport, proper road network and drainage. A borough must have availability and ease of access to public services, water, sewage, police, fire, health and environment and garbage disposal, facilitating trade, commerce and social activities. These are the proposals that the Council of Siparia and the UNC would like to see, as Siparia is considered to be upgraded from a regional corporation into a borough. There is also another concern that the PNM deciding to name Siparia a borough could be an indication for the intervention of the EBC to interfere with the boundaries to create electoral districts and municipalities that would favor the PNM. We have strong objection to this type of interference, and we call on the government to ensure that any change from regional corporation to borough, whether it is in Siparia, Diego Martin, or anywhere else, must be meaningful and not just a cosmetic name change. It must focus on people and development. At this time, I would like you to hear a few words from the chairman of the Siparia Regional Corporation, Mr. Dinesh Sankar Singh.
Thank you very much, MP Amin. A pleasant good afternoon to all of Trinidad and Tobago. A special mention to the people of the Siparia Regional Corporation. It is indeed a pleasure to be here this afternoon to address some of your concerns and some of the issues that have been identified by us at the Siparia Regional Corporation in the upcoming weeks and months ahead. This afternoon we are focusing on an attempt by the present government to change the status of the Siparia Regional Corporation from a regional corporation and giving it borough status. One must understand and appreciate what borough status means, what happens under the regional corporation, and how is it going to impact on our lives, whether it will be improving or having a negative impact. So please understand me, this afternoon it is not an attempt to discourage a move to borough status. The question remains that apart from a change of name, what does it mean? How is the region going to benefit from change in status? Is it just a superficial change? Is it a superficial name change which will be used where resources may be better utilized elsewhere? How does it impact on the community? And how does it benefit the community? How does it impact on the lives of the burgesses? Now that is the most important part. How does it impact on the lives of our burgesses? Will it mean an increase in taxes on businesses, or are businesses going to benefit in any way? Given the geographic span of the Siparia Regional Corporation, there will be changes. Will there be changes in the boundaries? Remember, Siparia Regional Corporation is a huge geographical area with areas stretching as far as Cedros, and we are asking the question. So, for example, given the remoteness of Cedros, will that be removed, and how does that impact on the political landscape? And that's a question that we need to consider and appreciate. Is the government technically trying to create a new regional corporation under the guise of borough status by altering the boundaries? That's the question that needs to be asked, and most importantly, it needs to be answered. Bearing in mind that the EBC has the power to adjust boundaries, as was witnessed recently in Tobago. Before borough status can be considered, funds must be and should be allocated to properly deal with those existing infrastructural issues that plague the corporation that are in dire need of attention right now. The Siparia Regional Corporation is starved for funds and requires an increase in its current financial allocation. So what are the changes and benefits? What are the political, social, economic, and cultural changes and benefits to come about? And this is what we must consider. As chairman of the Siparia Regional Corporation, we have been plagued with a number of issues in terms of satisfying the needs of our burgesses and trying to service them. We have some of the most committed and dedicated councillors and aldermen who work 24 hours a day to attend to the needs. As was witnessed quite recently, you see there have been major natural disasters in terms of flooding that has impacted the lives of thousands and had a deadly impact, so to speak. Another major issue that I would want you to focus on and to pay attention is Petrotrin. Most of you would know that Petrotrin, the base with Petrotrin was the Santa Flora area, and the majority of the wells and services it attended to and it provided is located in the Siparia Regional Corporation. The closure of Petrotrin has had a major negative impact on the lives of our citizens, economic, social, cultural, otherwise. Petrotrin played a major role in the lives of our citizens. And as a result of that, it impacted on how the citizens benefited or did not benefit. For example, Petrotrin used to assist with garbage collection, roads, drains, and other services. Now, I want you to understand that the closure of Petrotrin, you married this in to what the government are asking of us. They ask of us to implement or to propose a 4% cut in funding for the new financial year. They didn't say an increase in funding. They say a proposed 4% cut in funding, which means they are taking away the already scarce resources that are allocated to us. Now, adequate funding is critical because remember, we are not a fund generating entity. We are dependent on the government to provide the funding necessary for us to provide the basic services. So adequate funding is necessary, and it must be considered that it has to be expanded and not cut. And if it is cut, it will have a negative impact. Now, Petrotrin had a major impact on the lives of our citizens. Apart from losing jobs, losing an income, it provided a number of complementary services in the community, and it serviced a number of areas. With the closure of Petrotrin, all those services from garbage collection provide to electricity proposal, those responsibilities have now been placed on the regional corporation, which means there is a greater demand for our services, which means there is a greater demand for financial resources. And as has been seen, there has been a cut in financial resources, a reduction in financial resources, a removal of financial resources. How is borough status going to benefit us? Are we going to be a proposed change of borough status for namesake only, or are they going to increase our funding to better provide services for our burgesses, our members here? Now, I want you to remember that in terms of when Petrotrin closed down, there were the effect on manpower and equipment shortage, all of that were impacted upon. At the Superior Regional Corporation, because of the lack of funding, basic funding that was proposed but never provided, there has been a lack of manpower, lack of tools, lack of equipment. We cannot provide the basic services that is required of us. So we need more resources to provide, as I said before, the tools, the equipment, the tools and the supplies that we need for our councillors to service our burgesses. Because you cannot simply ignore the demands of the burgesses, because they are tax-paying citizens, but we are not getting taxes, it's going to central government. They have to provide those taxes to us. So we have to ensure that we have additional medical resources available to our burgesses as well. Now remember, when these basic services are not provided, it has a negative impact on the lives of our citizens, and a negative impact in a serious way. We want to ensure that at the Superior Regional Corporation, we can provide an adequate level of representation. Now, I want you to understand and appreciate, and these points will be expanded on later. At the Superior Regional Corporation, which, as I said before, expands all the way to Cedros, there has been a greater demand on our services. And especially when you have the immigrant community that has placed a greater demand for our services, starting from vaccination, come right back. And we cannot ignore our people, we cannot ignore the people who are here in Trinidad and Tobago, because they have an impact on all our lives. How are we going to service them? How are we going to equip them? How are we going to deliver the goods and services that we are supposed to do? Now remember, these are basic goods and services. We are not talking about any luxurious resources, basic, from ranging from garbage collection to vaccination to equipment providing, all that is necessary. I want us to understand that. And I don't want to come across as being that we are complaining, but I want us to look at ways that we can expand our ability to create employment when we look at tourism, when we look at communication. Now, I could go on and on and on as chairman here, but I'm not going to do so. I want to leave room for our members to expand it. But I want you to understand that the change from regional corporation to borough status will have a major impact. It will demand greater resources. Those resources are not being provided. The government is denying the people of the Superior Regional Corporation basic services by not providing the financial resources that is required to allow our councillors to better equip themselves and to do the work that is required of us. Now, I have a lot more to say, but I will hold straight for now and have back over to the chairman to continue the discussions.
Okay. And this time we have Councillor Derek Boren, who is also the chairman of Finance, the Finance Committee, Finance Planning and Allocation of Resources. So he will address you for a few minutes.
Thank you very much, MP. My name is Derek Bowen. I am the councillor for Mondesi, and I also, as the chairman indicated, the Chairman of Finance Plan Allocation. Now, I want to start by saying this, and it's important that Trinidad and Tobago understand this. When this government reads a budget, it is merely that, some numbers on a piece of paper. Because when we have to get releases for funding to run our corporation, we hardly ever get what we request. So that's the beginning, that's the basis of everything. Now, as the speakers before would have mentioned, we are not here to say we don't want borrow, but we want borrow in a proper manner. We don't want borrow by just putting a sticker on a vehicle or changing the sign in front of the corporation. If you're going to be a borrower, you have to be properly well prepared. We are requesting that we get adequate funding so that we can do the development work that's required to take Superior to be a proper borough. You don't want to drive through a borough and hit a pothole every 2 feet. You don't want to be driving through a borough and for time rainfall and flood. That's not what a borough is supposed to be. Our strategic plan is there, and we want to make sure we can actually execute that plan to take Superior to the standard of borough. So I want to put a little bit of perspective into the numbers. Our closest borough to Superior would be Point 14. Point 14 has a population of approximately 17,000 persons. But their allocation is roughly $69 million. That probably equates to about $4,000 per person. As opposed to Superior, whose population is approximately 80,000 persons, and we get $78 million. Allocated, eh? I want to stress on that word, because allocated is one, how much you receive is quite another. And even out of that, we have been asked this year to cut almost $3.1 million off of that, which is approximately 4%. But since 2019, you plan to make Superior a borough, and you come now to ask us to take less money to do more. The chairman have mentioned several aspects of our funding issues, and other members would mention that also. But it's important that we understand the fact that a budget is only that on paper. We have tremendous issues getting the money. We'd have only gotten about 80% of our recurrent for the year. We requested 100%, we only got about 80%. So how are we to function? Could you build a house without material? It's impossible. So we as councillors have to turn blood into wine or water into wine, whatever, to try to service our budgets, because we are not getting adequate financial resources to do what we need to do. So I'm calling the government, yes, borrow, no problem. We're happy. We are UNC Council that sat and approved that. But with that comes some consequences. We can't just change the stickers on the vehicles. We need to do some development work. We don't even have a head office. It's broken down. Are you going to fund that for us? Are you going to put up that new structure for us in Superior as a headquarters of the borough? So these are questions that has to be answered, and I truly hope that in the upcoming budget we hear some sort of a way forward as it regards these issues. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Trinidad and Tobago. My UNC family, a special good afternoon, all viewers. My name is Ramona Victor, Councillor for the Electoral District of Superior East, San Francisco South. As a resident of Superior, I must start by saying that we, the Superior residents, we welcome that change from being a regional corporation to a borough corporation. But this must not just be a cosmetic change. The change from regional corporation to borough corporation should include fundings for drainage, for roads, for employment. I'll tell you something. Every time rain falls, we the residents of Superior, we are affected by flooding. It's like a sea on High Street, Superior. And the residents, we deserve more. And that cannot be done unless there is additional finance allocated, and not only allocated, but released to the Superior Regional Corporation. I want to tell you that two banks, namely Scotiabank in Superior, RBC Bank in Superior, they have left Superior. They have closed their doors on Superior. And this is a result that money is not generating within the region of Siparia. With the closure of Petrotrin, this would have added to money being taken out of the region of Siparia. So I want to mention again, yes, we welcome the borough of Siparia, but it must not be a cosmetic change. We deserve additional fundings in order to satisfy and to ensure the happiness of our Burgesses. If we get additional fundings, then we'll be able to employ more persons, and then persons will be able to provide for their families. There will be a decrease in the crime situation in Siparia. And all this, these are simple things that we are asking for. And we cannot go on just living life as normal. Things must change. We demand not a cosmetic change. We demand proper infrastructure in Siparia. And the thing about it is that we have a chairman and a UNC council there in Siparia who is willing and able to take the Siparia Regional Corporation forward under the borough status. But the government needs to give us the resources so that we can get our job done. More fundings, as I said, could create employment, which will be able to provide for the families. We, UNC, we want our residents, we want them to be happy. We don't want when they get up in the morning, the garbage truck take up half of the garbage and the next road, and on that same road, half of the garbage remain. Why? Because the garbage truck is not getting enough finance to clean up the entire area. So all we are asking for is that we get the resources to get the job done. We are willing and we are able. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone, friends and family on Facebook and our listening audience. I am Councillor Dudnat Meru, the representative for Avocat San Francisco North. As you have heard from the speakers before, the status changed from regional corporation to borough. I am the chairman of the Physical Infrastructure Committee at the corporation. There are too many issues that needs to be addressed by this government in the Siparia region before we can move to borough status. There's a serious issue of flooding in the region. There's a serious water shortage in the region. There's serious work to be done to upgrade our road facility. We met with the Minister of Rural Development and Local Government about 2 weeks ago. I indicated to him that we need to get all the other ministries on board to bring Siparia up to a standard where people can see change before we change from regional corporation to borough. Flooding, as I said, is a major problem. As soon as it rains, some of our roads become a drain. There's about 6 landslips on the Timital area. You would recall not too long ago there was 2 protests in that area for those landslips. Nothing is being done to alleviate the hardship of the people of Siparia, and giving us borough status will not do that. We are asking that they do the work necessary to upgrade our road network, upgrade our water supply, make sure our landslip are repaired, and then we can move from regional corporation to borough status. This, as the minister said, is a cosmetic change. I don't see the need and the rush to go into borough status. As the chairman indicated, we were asked to cut our allocation for the new term, new financial year, by 4%. We already in the red with the present allocation. How can we cut our allocation by 4% when we are in the red with the normal allocation? I said to the minister, it's better we had pursued local government reform and all 14 municipal corporations in this country would have benefited than choose to give borough status when our allocation will remain the same, the problems the people suffer in Siparia will remain the same, and there will be no change. The only change we will have is borough corporation, and we will have a mayor and a deputy mayor in Siparia. We don't want that. We also ask for consultation there must be some form of consultation with the business people and the burgesses of Siparia and get their views as to what they want to see happen in the region before this change take place. We don't just rush and make changes so people doesn't know how they will benefit or not benefit from this change. And as the chairman said, we don't know if the business people in Siparia will have to pay additional taxes. We don't know if this is a form of taxation for the government of this country, changing from regional corporation to borough status. So we are not against it. We asked for it. But we told the government we wanted consultation. We wanted to consult with the burgesses of the region, get their views, and let them determine how we should chart the way forward for borough status in Siparia. I thank you.
In closing, I just want to add some sentiments. The United National Congress continues to keep our ears to the ground and close to the people. Yesterday evening, we had a pre-budget consultation with our local government stakeholders, and I just want to express some concerns ahead of the upcoming budget from our local government fraternity. Almost every regional corporation has not gotten their full allocation, the releases for the allocation that were made in last budget. The financial year is coming to an end, and all regional corporations have been told to cut their request for funding by 4% for the upcoming financial year. While we see the neglect of the Ministry of Works having a significant impact by them not dealing with the roads and drainage under their purview, it is causing worsening problems such as landslips and further flooding. The neglect of all the various ministries is having an impact, and it is falling back on local government. And local government has been the one getting the blame, getting the responsibility, and getting zero resources. Our councillors also expressed concern with the number of unemployed persons within the region, and the corporations having no funding, no role to play in the distribution of food support or any kind of social assistance to those in need. I just want to reiterate that local government is the arm of government that is closest to people. And every pothole, every garbage collection issue, every major issue within, as soon as you step out your door, falls on our councillors' laps. So I want to ask the government, we are going into 2022. There is a local government election due, and that is the only time the PNM ever pays any attention to local government. Local government reform, local government development must not be cosmetic. It must not be something that you use to talk on a platform only for election. It must be meaningful, and it must be consistent. There are many areas that the PNM is suffering and strangling local government, and then they will come closer to the election to make more grandiose promises, and the announcement that they plan to make of changing Siparia and Diego Martin regional corporations into boroughs is something they seem to believe will be an achievement. A cosmetic name change is not an achievement. We want meaningful development for local government. Stay tuned as we look forward to see what the budget will bring, and at this time we are open to questions.
Scott, when is this supposed to be happening, this changeover from corporation to borough?
The government has not indicated when they intend to rename the corporations into borough. What we do know is that in January of 2019, the regional corporation, the UNC corporation, made a request for Siparia to be named a borough. In that year, there was a local government election, and Dr. Keith Rowley came down to Siparia because it is a marginal corporation, and he campaigned and he promised borough status. It wasn't until a whole year later, at the opening of a community center in Diego Martin, the Prime Minister mentioned to the media that Cabinet was going to approve 2 new boroughs, Diego Martin and Siparia. Another year passed, and it was only in September of 2021, this year, a few weeks, a couple days ago in fact, the Minister of Local Government came to the corporation to have some kind of rushed discussion. There was no consultation, there was no information coming forward. We still do not have an indication from the government of when they want to make this change and what this change will entail. The only thing we have is the utterance of the current Minister of Local Government, Mr. Kazim Hussein, who said that it will be a change of name and the opportunity to call the chairman of the corporation, Your Worship. That is cosmetic, that is superficial, and we want more than that for Siparia and for, in fact, any regional corporation that would be made into a borough.
What is the more you're looking forward for other than being mayor and being a borough?
Development of a regional corporation into a borough has a lot to do with the supporting infrastructure. It also must be tied into national development goals. It must facilitate local economic development, provide jobs, and develop the region as a whole. You must have within a borough services and such as public utilities that are readily available. Every minute water going in Siparia. The people of Siparia and surrounding region spend weeks without a proper water supply. That is not, should not be happening in a borough. You have flooding on high streets in Siparia. Every time it rains, businesses have to close because there is water and mud in Siparia on high street. These are things that have to be dealt with if you are to upgrade the area to borough. So upgrade to borough is not just a change of name. The public health issues, the garbage disposal issues must also be addressed. A town centre and a borough centre must facilitate trade and commerce and service-related activities, including cultural activities, education, hospitals, medical facilities, and so on. So the announcement by the Prime Minister is something that is very clear, it is superficial, and what we are asking for is meaningful development. The request to make Siparia a borough came from a UNC council, and the UNC council stands ready with their strategic development plan to go forward to develop Siparia into a borough, not just to rename it.
Now you also mentioned, okay, being a corporation, the taxes will be more in a borough. I mean, you see Santa Ana is different to the city, is different to the corporation. Would there be, I mean, obviously there will be more on taxes, and you are asking for consultation, right?
Yes.
So is that, these things you highlighted will be in the consultation?
The chairman of the regional corporation, Mr. Dinesh Sankar Singh, indicated that one of the concerns is whether this change to borough will mean the businesses have to pay more taxes, or in fact any of the burgesses have to pay more taxes. We don't know, because the government has not indicated that. The government has also not had any sort of consultations with the stakeholders of the regions. We have about 3 chambers of commerce, we have NGOs, we have community-based organizations, sporting and cultural organizations who are willing to have a say into what they want Siparia Borough to be as a whole. Consultation is very important because it allows people to get their views across, and it allows people to be a part of the process. So the council has asked for consultations to be held with the government, with the burgesses, so that we could go forward together to borough status. Okay, I want to thank our viewers on our Facebook Live, our UNC page. We say a special good afternoon to each of you from Siparia region, and just say thank you for the viewing.
Of course, I just want to add to what MP Khadija is saying, and I express our heartfelt thanks and genuine vote of appreciation for your attention. I would hope that you would understand and appreciate our concerns and the concerns expressed. You will work with us. Our ultimate goal is to improve the quality of lives for our burgesses and our citizens, and if there's any way we can help, from garbage collection to empowerment, we are willing to do so. That is the role of your councillors, of your MPs, and I would dare say our party, the United National Congress, stands ready to assist and empower our citizens to improve the quality of life. I want you to understand and appreciate our concerns here and to work with us to help improve not only Superior Regional Corporation, but all of Trinidad and Tobago. I thank you so very much.
Yeah. Before we wrap up, please keep your places. People take a few pictures. Yeah, go ahead. You close up the line? Yeah. Oh, I thought you finished. Okay, well.